Welcome back to On the Path, where we discuss all things Witcher, and who better to discuss all things Witcher with, along with me and Brett, is the voice of Geralt of Rivia himself, Mr. Doug Cockle. Doug, thank you so much for joining us. It's really great to have you. How's it going? How are you today?
I'm well, thank you, Lucy. Yeah, really pleased to be here. Glad to be talking to you guys. Way.
It's been good. Yeah, it's been nice sort of interacting on social media and stuff over the past couple of weeks with the charities and stuff that we'll get into later. But before we get into all of our questions about The Witcher and like other roles that you've taken part in, I kind of just wanted to ask a bit about yourself. I know that you're originally from America, which we were just talking about, but you've lived in the UK now for quite a long time. Did you say it's like 20 years?
Yeah, I've been over here since 1999.
That's amazing. That's longer than I've lived here. I didn't move here till 2004. So you're more of a Brit than I am. But one thing that I wanted to ask is quite a serious question. I've been planning on sending Brett like a box of UK treats. And I feel like you'd be a great person to ask, like, what British snack must every American try?
Oh, wow. Okay. British snack. You mean like biscuits?
Biscuits,
cookies,
cakes,
and stuff?
Yeah. So one of the things that I was definitely going to put in was a Jaffa cake.
I was just thinking
don't
exactly
say Jaffa
that.
Cake. Don't say Jaffa Cake.
I was just thinking, well, you kind of got to do a Jaffa Cake because that they're kind of they're one of those ones that they're so British.
They are.
Yeah,
that's why it doesn't sound very appetizing to me. Orange and chocolate, just no.
It's good. It's good. Shortbread.
Another good one. Yeah. Simple.
Yeah. Nice
with a cup of tea, actually.
Yeah. What are the ones? Well, I'm partial to vanilla creams.
Lovely.
But what are the ones that they're round and they've got jam in the middle and there's a hole in the middle?
Oh, like a jammy dodger.
Jammy Dodgers. Yeah.
Have you heard of them, Brett?
Jammy, no, but that's just the most British thing I've heard since the last most British thing I've heard. A jammy dodger.
Jammy dodger. Anything Mr. Kipling, like cherry bakewells and stuff as well. They're all my favorites. And then there's also from Northern Ireland, there's Tayto crisps, which I don't know if you've been over to Northern Ireland or not in your time here, Doug, but Tayto crisps are like my favorite Northern Irish delicacy.
Oh, I don't think I've had Tayto crisps.
Oh,
I haven't been to Northern Ireland either. I've been to Dublin.
Nice. Yeah.
Not to the north.
Dublin's a really nice city, and Belfast is kind of like on its way up now as well. I think whenever I lived there, which well over 10 years ago, it wasn't like the nicest of places, but now it's definitely more of like an up and coming city. So it's a nice place to visit. It's pretty easy to get to as well. But you've lived, like you say, you've lived here for 20 years now, and obviously you use your voice a lot in your acting. Do you feel like your accent has changed at all since you've lived here?
Oh yeah. Well, and what a lot of people don't know about me is that I've done a lot of teaching. In fact, from 2004 to 2017, I was teaching full time on the BA Honors Acting course at the Arts University Bournemouth, which started out as the Arts Institute at Bournemouth, but gradually became a full-fledged university itself over the time that I was there. And all of The Witcher was recorded while I was doing that. And for it was 13 years. For 12 of those 13 years, I was the course leader. So I was line managing other people and writing timetables and managing budgets and all that stuff, and then popping out every once in a while to do voice work. But how this is relevant to the question that you asked is that my accent has changed. My dad thinks I sound English now.
That's what my family says to me as well.
Yeah, well, you've lost a lot of your accent.
Yeah, I think I pick it up everywhere I go.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of like that too. I kind of pick up. I'm a magpie for accents. If I go somewhere where there's a strong accent, I start picking it up. I did that when I first moved to the UK, and my wife told me off one day at dinner. She said, "Stop talking like that." So, anyways, while I was teaching, I noticed that, when I first started teaching full time and the students were, a little bit bolder as they got to know me, they used to ask me to repeat myself. And I didn't understand why they couldn't understand my perfectly good English. But just as an experiment, I kind of changed some of my inflections consciously. I started to use a little bit more of a kind of English accent, and they stopped asking me to repeat myself. So yeah, it became kind of a semi-conscious thing to actually have what they called it when I was in actor training was a mid-Atlantic accent. So not American, not full-on English, somewhere out in the middle of the Atlantic.
I think that happened to me as well. Like whenever I grew up till I was about 10 in Kent, down in England, and had a very English accent. But then when I moved to Northern Ireland, obviously I was 11 and kids are awful. So they would just tease me relentlessly, so much so that I just developed a Northern Irish accent and it never went away. But yeah, when I go home now, everybody says I sound like a Geordie, which I mean, I obviously don't, but they think I do.
Oh, it's terrible. Isn't it? Kids are terrible. Kids are horrible. I mean, I love kids, but they're so mean to each other. And even when they're older, I remember when I was at university, there was this woman named Sarah Rippard. If you're out there listening to this, I'm so sorry. But she was from England, and we just took the piss out of her constantly for saying things like vitamins, and it was just mean, but great fun.
So easy.
You said the mid-Atlantic, isn't that what the accent was back in Hollywood of like the 30s and 40s? I know it was like Jimmy Stewart and all them. I think that's what they called that, where they're trying to find that middle ground where it was something where the English couldn't understand a lot of that. And they created this like mid-Atlantic. Isn't that what it was?
I don't know. I've not heard that before, but that, could very well be the case. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I remember. I don't know. I love all those 40s, 50s type of movies. And, the way like Jimmy Stewart, like the way people sound then, it's like, it sounds like a 1940s and 50s actor because they like invented this type of accent. But I don't know, maybe that could be one of those things from a fever dream that I've had. So one of your earliest credited roles, I think on IMDb, it was credited as third. It is one of my favorite pieces of media of everything of all time. Every year around June 6th, I do this D-Day kind of workout and I rewatch the first episode of Band of Brothers, the HBO miniseries. And I remembered it yesterday, just out of the blue. I was like, oh my God, that's right. You were in it. And we looked it up. We actually watched the clip of you in my stream yesterday of the episode in Carentan. And you were Father Maloney, the chaplain, correct?
Yeah.
You were the crazy Irishman.
Father John Maloney, yeah.
Yes. And it explains easier how you got this role. Because I remember thinking, okay, this was all shot in England. And I remember everybody was English. That's why so many actors were English. You just said you moved over in 99. So he explains, how you were there. How did you go about getting this role?
Wow. It's kind of a long story. So I'll keep it as concise as I can. When I first moved to the UK in 1999, obviously I didn't know anybody here. I knew nobody except my wife's family and some of her friends who I'd met before, her university and high school kind of friends. And I managed to talk my way into a job at the York Theatre Royal. And through that, I met an agent named Philippa Howell, who eventually became my agent for 16 years. And we had a fantastic working relationship, and we still have a fantastic relationship just as friends and colleagues. Anyways, how this all works is I did that play, and my wife and I were living in London, and there used to be this publication called PCR, Production Casting Report. It doesn't exist anymore. In paper form, at any rate. And it was a way for actors to know, you subscribed to it, and it came every Tuesday, I think it was. And it was a way for actors to know what productions were being cast and what stage of production they're in. Are they in pre-production, so something to look out for? Are they in production, so they're actively casting? Or are they in post, so you just no sense bothering? But it gave us all us professional actors in the UK kind of a broad view of what was happening in the television and film industry. So I got that, and I saw a casting come up for this thing called Band of Brothers. I didn't know anything about it. Nobody did really. I put myself up for it because although I had met this agent, she didn't quite know what to do with me because I was an American in England. She was like, I don't know what to do with you, but let's see what happens and go from there. So she actually got me my first video game role, which maybe we can talk about later. But so I put myself up for this thing called Band of Brothers, and I got called in for an audition. And Debbie McWilliams was the casting director, and she really liked me, but I think she called me. I don't want to get this wrong, but it's so long ago now, I don't remember. After my audition, she basically said to me, look, I really like you. You're a good actor, but you're too old. Oh. Yeah. Well, that was basically it, because all these guys, they were in their, late teens, early 20s, and I was 29 when I auditioned.
So old.
I know, so old. Yeah. So I was just a little bit too old for most of the roles. But she said, but you're fantastic and you seem like a good guy. Would you like to come in and help me run the auditions, read opposite the folks coming in, because they need an American voice. And I think I got paid £100 a day to go in and sit there and read opposite these guys auditioning for the other roles and all the roles in Band of Brothers. So I was the one reading opposite all the English actors auditioning for their roles. And I continued to do that right up through the final castings where the major roles were being cast. And one day, Tony Toe, one of the executive producers, he was there for these final castings. And the room was relatively empty. I think Debbie was there, and another casting director named Suzanne Smith, I think, was involved at that point. And Tony came over to me, and we were on a little break, and he said, "Hey, Doug, how you doing? You're doing a great job. Thank you so much for your help and stuff." And I was like, "Yeah. It's nice to be a part of the casting process, on the other side and see how it all happens, and stuff like that." So he said, "Yeah, well, you're doing a fantastic job. Hey, there's this smallish role, but it's a principal role. It's still among the principal's characters, named Father Maloney, and he has to be a bit older because he's the chaplain of the company. Are you interested?" And I practically bit his hand off. I was like, "Yeah, am I interested? Yeah, of course I'm interested. Yeah." So he said, "Okay, well, what's your, give me your agent's details and we'll be in touch." And so I went home that day, just absolutely buzzing. And I called Philippa, who was kind of my unofficial agent. We weren't really officially working together. And I said, "Philly, this HBO production, Band of Brothers, is offering me a role. And I told them you were my agent. Hope that's okay." And she went, "I think that's absolutely fine, Doug." So that was the real beginning of a very long and very happy relationship with my agent, and that's how I got into Band of Brothers.
Did you ever get to meet Spielberg or Tom Hanks?
I met Tom Hanks very briefly at the Band of Brothers premiere, but it was very, very briefly. Okay. I had more of a chat with his son, Colin, actually, who was there. I don't remember if he had a small role in I think he did. He did.
He was the main character in, oh God, I thought I knew about this show. Not Crossroads. It's like episode 7 or something like that. It's the one Tom Hanks, I think, directed, the episode he directed.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, because Colin was there, again, a long time ago. But I think I was sitting near Colin on the train. Somewhere there was a train involved. I can't remember if it was Eurostar or something. It's all fuzzy history in my brain,
I guess that maybe would have been, did you do an Irish accent in that show?
No, he was an American.
He was an American. Oh, I thought it was a Maloney. It sounds Irish.
He's of Irish descent, but he was,
I see. Okay, I'm with you.
That's like that absolute stereotype of, I'm sure it probably was at the time, but if you're going to have a World War II chaplain, it's going to be an Irishman. And that's when they said crazy the Irish. I'm sure Father Maloney was from Boston in the the background of you might have created his background character, but I'm sure it was from Boston, maybe even Southie or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I did think about giving him a little bit of something, but in the end, I just thought, no, that's feels too contrived. And the real guy wasn't, he didn't have any Irish accent, as far as I can tell. I never met him. I met his family.
Oh, wow. Yeah. See, that was another thing too of this, there was this big podcast that came out because it was, even though this is like the 21st anniversary of it, when a lot of those people talked about meeting the actual person they were portraying and the family. And so you got to meet like his family.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly who it was. I think it might have been his daughter and his granddaughter or something like that. I was sat at a table for a short while talking with two women who were related to Father John Maloney. And it was one of those things where, we didn't have a whole lot to talk about, but it was nice to meet them. And yeah.
You have some other questions about other roles, Brett, did you?
Well, the other one I had down also, you're in the MCU, credited as Young Doctor, Captain America. And World War II again, were you getting typecast in there as like supporting?
Well, that's what I get cast as in film and television. I usually get cast as the dad or the military officer or, something like that. So that's, I don't know, it's just where I seem to fall in the industry's eyes.
But, the MCU is something that has just completely, I feel like I've missed the boat with it a little bit. And I've seen, when all these amazing, like Marvel has got some amazing films coming out, and I see all of the clips coming out for them. And I keep saying to myself, I need to catch up with all the other ones first. And then I look at the list and there's like 30 films, 4 TV series and everything that I need to catch up with first. So
it's crazy. It's a whole big genre.
Yeah. But Captain America was one of the first ones, was it?
Yeah, it was what's it called? The First Avenger. Captain America,
that's right.
First Avenger. Yeah. Yeah, that was fun to be a part of. I was only actually on set for one day, but I do have a funny story about it because my scene was with Chris Evans.
Oh, wow.
And Stanley Tucci, actually. It was really cool to meet both of them, but they were both kind of in the zone. So we didn't really have a chat or anything like that. It was like, hey, hi, I'm Doug. Hi, I'm Stan. That kind of thing. And then, and then we were acting. But yeah, I was only on set for one day, and 2 memorable things happened on that day. I was in my trailer, waiting to be called on set. And the dialect coach came by because, it was filmed here in the UK. So a lot of English actors playing Americans and stuff like that. And the dialect coach came by my trailer, knocked on the door. She introduced herself and we were talking, and she suddenly went, I guess you don't really need me, do you? I said, no, I'm a genuine American. So there was that. And then the other thing, and this is a better one, I think, is we were, how if you've seen the film, Chris Evans, the character of what's Captain America's name?
Is it Steve?
Steve Rogers.
Steve Rogers. Thank you. Yeah. So Steve Rogers, he goes through that transformation from a kind of a skinny little weak thing into a bulked up Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they had a stand-in for Steve, who was, pretty buff because, most of the film he's Captain America, so he has to be pretty buff. So they had a stand-in who was a little skinny kind of guy who was the same height as Chris, I think. And he had dots all over his face and stuff so that they could superimpose Chris's face onto this body. And he was a really nice guy. But so he sat in for Chris. And when we were doing rehearsals, I think it was, I don't remember how it all happened. But anyways, we did all these rehearsals, and I had to step away from the table, walk to a stethoscope or something and do something. I had to cross the room during the take. And just before we did the actual take, someone placed a pair of shoes directly behind me. They were supposed to be Chris's shoes. or Steve Rogers' shoes. But nobody told me they were there, and I was on my mark waiting for action to be called. Nobody told me it was there, so they called action. I did my business with Chris, and then I turned to cross the room, and I tripped and fell face first
No way.
over these shoes.
Oh no!
And I was so embarrassed. I was cut. Reset. I was like, Jesus. First take.
First day.
And my only day on set, right in front of Chris and Stanley Tucci. And I was so embarrassed, and I was like, oh God, but I didn't know they were there. Nobody told me. How am I supposed to know?
Exactly.
Well, how I'm supposed to know is that I should have looked. I should have checked before the take just to be safe, but I didn't do that because I didn't think I needed to. Because we'd already rehearsed it like 3 times.
Yeah. Oh, bless you.
So I went back to Chris, and he was in the zone, he was being all serious and stuff. I walked up to reset myself, and he looked up at me, and I could kind of see he was like, dude. And I said, yeah, I know, Chris. Just broke the first rule of acting. Just say the lines and don't trip over the furniture. That's exactly what I just did.
How many takes did it take in the end? Do you remember?
I think we did 3 takes in the end.
Oh, that's still good.
2 good.
Wait, why were the shoes there? Like right behind you or right by you?
I don't remember. I think it's the scene in the movie is when Steve Rogers goes to try to enlist, and he's too small, or whatever it was, whatever the reasons were. And Stanley Tucci, the guy who ends up turning him into Captain America, comes in to do a thing. And so as part of his exam, he had to take off his shoes and his shirt. I think that's what it was. Because they check for flat feet and things like that, So I don't know. It was embarrassing.
Well, as we've discussed, you've had quite a few acting roles. So did you always plan on moving into voice acting? Did that naturally happen, or?
No, that was a complete accident. Yeah. So I trained for stage, and most training when I was doing my training was for stage. There's very little, there still is relatively little training for film and television and voiceover work and things like that. That's changing, but I guess my point is, when I was in grad school and undergrad, the idea of a career as a voiceover artist for video games just wasn't even a thing.
Yeah.
Now everybody wants to do it, but back then it wasn't even a thing, because most games didn't have voices in them. There were a few things like Mario going woo or whatever, things like that, but it was all 16-bit sound, so there were no voices. So I moved to England in 1999, July of 1999, and I already mentioned this agent who I met. And one of the first things she sent me to was, she called me up one day and she said, I was still in York doing the play. And she said, hey, Doug, there's this, I put you up for a role in a video game and they want to see you for it. Are you up for driving over to Harrogate and auditioning? And I said, yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing. So I went and auditioned for this game, and ended up getting the lead role. And I'd never worked on microphone like that before. I didn't know what to do with myself. I'd done some voiceover work, but not like that. It wasn't acting. It was, I think I did a narrator thing for a mining museum in Pennsylvania. And I literally just read from the script, and it was just my own voice. So this was acting on microphone was just new. Anyways, I got the lead role, and it was for a game called Independence War II: Edge of Chaos, and I played Cal, the protagonist of the game. And I don't remember how long we were recording that. I think it was only 3 or 4 sessions, something like that. This is early days. This is 1999, early days of voice acting for video games. And I think the company they're still in operation. I still go and work with them, 5-6 times a year, Outsource Media. And they'd only been doing voices for video games for a year or 2 at that point, I think. And yeah, that was how it started. I didn't even know it was a thing, and it's become the thing
Yeah,
that
it's
I'm
such a
known
big thing
for.
now.
Yeah, and it's my career. It's like I do television, I do film when those things come up, but I don't get those as often as I get games.
Hmm.
Um,
I guess now,
so,
even like you were saying earlier, you have your own booth in your house now. Is that
mhm.
something you've always had?
No, no, I decided to do this. I set this up about, well, not this. I actually had a much more simple setup before I did this. It was in January, or February. I built this. This is what you're seeing me in now is in a corner of my bedroom. We lost some wardrobes and made some space, and I've got a little, I don't know, 2.5 by 2 meter. No, it's 2 by 2.
Hmm.
I think, square thing built into the corner of the room that my wife and I built. She designed it, and I built it, and it works fantastic. But before that, there's a cupboard in the hallway, and
Yeah.
I took the lower half of the cupboard and turned it into a voice booth. So
Wow.
I'd literally sit on the landing of the first floor, uh, right next to the stairs, and between my two teenage sons' bedroom doors, and stick my head into the cupboard to record stuff. So but I set that up, I think, in 2018.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, sometime in the winter of 2018. And I just thought, I knew lots of other people who had them, and I was advised against it by other people who I respect, um, in the voiceover industry. And their reasons were valid, but I just went, you know what? I think I'm going to want to have this available to myself just in case. And then, of course, COVID hit, and
Well, yeah, I was gonna
everybody was
say.
frantically trying to
Yeah.
build home booths, and I was sitting there going, "Hey, I've got mine all sorted out." So,
Yeah, of
What,
course.
when is the last time you've gone into a studio to record something?
the last time I've been in, I don't remember. I
That
was
long
supposed
ago,
to
huh?
be, yeah, well, I was supposed to be in this past Wednesday, I think it was, but then that got rescheduled because the director was sick.
Yeah.
Um, I recently came back from Spain, and it was before that. I think the last time I was in a studio was the week before I flew off to Spain for a holiday. So it's been about 3 weeks. But I'm in a studio in London, Liquid Violet, next Wednesday and Friday for 2 sessions. So yeah, I
It's so
mostly
good
get
to.
called to go into the studios, and it's usually very small, independent games that I do through the home studio, because they'll approach me directly via Twitter or something else, and then uh, if I like what I hear or see, or whatever it is, then I'll put them onto my agent, and then we'll do it that way around. But I'm not actively trying to undercut the vocal production studios in any way, shape, or form. I wouldn't want to do that. But if a small studio that has a very, very tight budget approaches me directly, and we're only talking about you know 3 or 4 hours of recording or something like that, then quite often I'll do it.
It's so great to have the
Okay.
option, isn't it? Yeah, like I
Yeah,
even find with
absolutely.
my job, we were able to work from home the day after Boris announced the lockdown, and it was just so we'd never done it before, and we couldn't believe how easy it was. And then now my company's able to hire more people because not everybody has to be in the office, and it's just so much
Mm.
better having both options.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my wife works completely remotely on two businesses,
Wow.
but she works for herself, or she works for her family. Um, and I mean, what I found it really useful for is for auditions for games, because it used to be pre-COVID. Everything I had to go up to London for everything.
Oh, really?
A 10-minute audition for a game, or for even a smallish role in a game, and I'd have to pay 70 quid to get on a train, 5 hours of travel to London and back, go into the studio for 10, 15 minutes, audition, and then come home.
Yeah.
Now, occasionally people ask me to come up to the studios, but more often than not, through my agent, they'll send me an audition and they'll just say, yeah, record it from home, send it in via WeTransfer.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier. So much easier. So
yeah, it seems almost unnecessary, like to make you go all the way down there when it's a voice kind of thing. I get it if it was, what do they call it, motion capture. A lot of things motion capture. I get it if it's something like that, they want to see movement, see you can do certain things. But yeah, if it's quote only just the voice, it seems like this is like perfect now.
Yeah, even now though, I'm currently recording a game that we haven't done the mocap yet, but we'll be doing it soon, is my understanding. And that audition was a self-tape from home. And then we had a callback, which was also which was a video call from home. So, yeah, I think it kind of like you, Lucy. The industry it took COVID to force them to go.
Yeah.
You know what? We don't need to bring them into the studio. But part of the reason for bringing people into the studio, I think, Brett, it may have been unconscious, but it's a truism. I say it's a truism, and then I'm not going to give you a truism. I'm just going to tell you something that's the truth. Is that a big part of casting is kind of sounding out the person. And if you're just sending in a voice tape, and it could have an accent, or it could be altered from the person's real voice, then you're not meeting the person. You're hearing the character, which is great. That's important. But so much of what we do in the entertainment and gaming industry is work with other people. And so you kind of, there was a director who famously, like a director in the 50s or something like that, 40s or 50s, and he was being interviewed. This is one of those what's the word for it, one of those, I can't remember the word, one of those stories that's handed down through time, and whether it's true or not, who knows. But he was asked, so what are you looking for in casting? And he said, well, there's the obvious things, are they right for the role? What's their voice like? What is their image like on camera? He says, but 90% of it is, do I want to work with this for 6 months? Sorry, I just F-bombed you. I'm so sorry.
Okay, we can bleep it.
Our first bleep, you got it. It wasn't me.
In the swear jar.
It was somebody else.
Yeah, so it was for this director, it was do I want to spend all this time working with this individual?
Yeah.
So it comes down to, who is this person who I'm going to have to interact with, I'm going to need to interact with, and do I feel like I can interact with them on a personal level as well as a professional level? So I think that's partly why people want to bring people into the studios, because it is just a voice, but it's not just a voice. It's a person who you have to work with. So that's a guess. I have no research to back that up, but
Yeah, there's definitely something, because my background mainly is in coaching. And so much of I'm solely convinced, when I was a graduate assistant at a college as a, grad student coach, whatnot, that I got hired on mainly because I was liked and I was easy to work with. People knew what I knew as well. And I knew some things, but more or less, it was definitely, hey, this is someone we can spend 10 to 12 hours with, and on the road, 16 hours with, and stay up till 2 a.m. doing film and all that. So 100%, I definitely get that with acting. And we've kind of gone all over the place here. My questions are kind of all over the place here. So we can kind of just lead into, I know you mentioned earlier, you said your agent, which was Philippa, right?
Yeah, she's retired now. I'm with
okay.
a different agent now, Graham Legg.
Okay.
And he's a lovely guy, but yeah, Philippa, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so she's the one that got you that voice acting role that we're going to talk about later. That would assume that would be The Witcher 1.
Yeah, well, she was my agent when Witcher 1 was cast and recorded. Well, she was my agent through the whole of the recording of all the Witcher games. Actually, she retired in 2017, and we finished recording on Witcher 3 DLCs in 2016. So, yeah.
Okay. From that, and we talked about there, you talked about there about voice acting, and what would let's go with The Witcher 3, because that's the main game, we talk about on here. That's the main game people know about. What typically was a recording session like a general one? Like, how long was it? How many times did you say your lines? Was your voice just shot, the direction and all that? So I guess just kind of broad, if you could just take us through that experience recording The Witcher 3.
Well, it was a journey from Witcher 1 to Witcher 3. And I will answer the question about Witcher 3, but I think it's worth mentioning the journey as well, because by the time we got to Witcher 3, Geralt's voice was natural for me. It was easy. I could just slip into it. It's just there. You know what I mean? So, but this wasn't so easy for Witcher 1. So for Witcher 1, we had the industry's changed since then as well. Witcher 1, we recorded in 2005. And, so there were 11 years recording Witcher 1, 2, and 3. Witcher 1, we were recording up to 10 hours a day.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a really intense, I think it was a 1 week. It was like 5 days of recording. And there might've been a 6th day. And we were recording long days. And as I mentioned, the Geralt voice was it was a real push into a register and a raspiness that I just hadn't really done very much. So yeah, I could barely speak at the end of the 2nd day, and then it was a struggle to get through the rest of Witcher 1. Lots of tea, lots of lots of peppermint tea and honey and lemon and stuff like that kind of got me through. Witcher 2 was a little bit different. We still recorded quite often up to 6 hours a day. I don't think we ever recorded more than 6 hours, but somewhere along the Witcher 2 recording journey, the industry kind of suddenly twigged that it wasn't good for the voice actors to record for more than 4 hours a day. So by the time we got to Witcher 3, we had 4-hour recording sessions, maximum, with at least 2 breaks, 2 15 or 20-minute breaks just to, get out of the booth and, stretch your legs and stuff. Because when you're in the booth, you're having to be quite contained. Not still, but you don't have the freedom of movement because clothes rustle and the mic picks it up and all this stuff. So just to give you a bit of a break. So 4 hours, a couple of breaks, and it wasn't. I mentioned I was teaching at the time, so it wasn't the way it tends to work. Is especially with a game like The Witcher 3, which is so big, you tend to record as the writers confirm episodes, as it were, or chapters of the game. So they're working away writing things, and they wrote The Witcher in Polish and then translated it for English, and then so once the English translations were as each say limb of the tree was confirmed, then we would record it. But quite often what would happen, bless them, CD Projekt, they work so hard, and the writers absolutely tremendous. So this is not a disparaging comment at all from me. It's just the way it was. They're working their tootsies off, and I'd get called in, and sometimes the script for the day would only have been absolutely confirmed the night before with CD Projekt and sent through to the production studio like the night before, or sometimes if I was recording at like 2 p.m, sometimes it was that morning that the script was actually sent through. Now this only happened a few times, but it's I don't know why I'm telling you that. I think it's to say, no, I don't know why I'm telling you that. It's just I remember sometimes going in, especially when we were still using paper, which we stopped doing sometime late Witcher 2, I think. Because they used to print these Excel spreadsheets out, and I'd be flipping pages and stuff like that. But yeah, the script would be literally hot off the press.
Yeah, I was watching one of the like CDPR have been doing some streams on Twitch the past few weeks to sort of in like their part of their 20-year celebration. And I can't remember the name of the guy that was on, but he was talking about the spreadsheets that they would have, and then how each line of dialogue can have 3 options. So it would be like a tree branching off on the spreadsheet. And I never even occurred to me how that would come through to you. And it just kind of blew my mind, the whole idea of having this tree system with all of the different options.
Yeah, well, and I seem to remember that I think once we moved to having a television monitor and having the script put up on the television monitor, I don't want to get this wrong, but I seem to remember that we would record each, if you think of each storyline as having multiple branches and then multiple branches off the branches, and then twigs as well, and maybe a few leaves as well. If you think about it that way, we'd record a storyline all the way through.
Yeah.
And then we'd record another story, another version of it, that starts in the same branch, but then it takes different, you know what I mean? You've got all those choices to make,
Yes.
So we'd record, if they make these choices, this is the story that they will encounter. So my memory is that's how we recorded it. So I wasn't necessarily recording 3 different branches at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I was recording one branch with various choices. Does that make any sense?
I get where you're going. I get where you're going.
But I do remember, I remember paper, and I remember having the three branches existing in the same. So we do one branch, and then the director would say, okay, now, so if you make a different choice, this is you know what I mean? So I could be completely mixing that up in my own head.
What would you say is the most common misconception about working as a voice actor?
The thing that comes to mind is that people think it's easy.
Yeah, I was going to say I saw Tom Hanks on Graham Norton once, and he was talking about when he did Woody. And he was saying, people thought it was really fun, like really easy doing Woody, but it was like some of the hardest work he's ever done, because especially Woody is so like tense all the time, and he's always screaming and he's always stressed. And he was like, I would come out of a couple of hours in the booth absolutely exhausted, but everybody thought because I'm speaking, it's super easy and an easy day's work. But he would say it's some of the hardest he's ever done.
Well, because that's one thing that kind of related to the voice acting, the live acting. So voice acting, say you do a line and it's like a cut. How much quicker, or what's the difference between that and getting back into it as opposed to live action? Like you said, when you fell down on the set of Captain America and then the cut, like how long did you get to prepare that? And I guess what those differences would be between live and voice acting.
Well, it depends on what you're doing. And it depends on the director, and it depends on the production schedule. And, it depends on so many different things. I mean, they're all very similar and all very different. In stage, you have rehearsals, and you rehearse things to death so that when you get on stage in front of a live audience, it looks like you haven't rehearsed things to death. Mm-hmm. But then, on stage, you have the truly live element of it. If things go wrong, you have to fix them in real time. And sometimes that involves admitting to the audience that things have gone wrong and acknowledging that. In film and television tends to shoot faster than film, though that's changing slightly now because of the nature of the television that's being shot.
Yeah.
Because television is so much more cinematic now than it used to be. And films that used to take 3 months to shoot now can be shot in 6 weeks. So the whole industry is changing. I don't know how that's relevant, but it's. I guess the point is the whole industry is changing. Digital technology is making things easier, cheaper, quicker,
There's a lot more post-production nowadays.
Yeah, a lot more post-production. So, the live factor. I'm about to say something that I think may not entirely be true, but I'm not sure. The live factor isn't such a factor. When it was, when films were shot on film, which is still happens, but not nearly as often as it used to. Every screw up on a take was money.
Yeah.
Not just money in terms of the time, but money in terms of the film stock. And especially if there were special effects involved, that's reset special effects, the squibs have to be replaced, all this stuff. So the live factor isn't as big an issue as it used to be. I don't know if this is answering your question, Brett.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. Well, very interesting.
I mean, I screw up all the time when I'm doing voice acting. It just happens because you're human, and you read a line wrong, or your lips don't work right, and something comes out sounding terribly weird or funny or whatever it is, and sometimes it's deliberate on my part because I think something's funny. So yeah, I don't know if I've answered your question.
Honestly, I don't even remember what my question was, but
something
that was
about is it different?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, different between there, but no, anything behind the scenes like this to me is interesting because we don't ever really hear about that. And like you said, even from watching a show, voice acting, whatever, it just looks so natural and it looks so easy as the finished product. And then I think about, like you said there, you shot that one scene 3 times. And then you hear about someone like David Fincher or like David O. Russell, who will do 20, 25 takes, or someone like Clint Eastwood, who does like 1, maybe 2, if if somebody messed something up, and just those differences in there. And to me, like, that's almost where it makes the actor. It's not even almost the ability to do it. It's the consistency of doing it, the almost maturity or discipline to get in there and take after take after take and to give it. And to me, like, that's just almost what seems to separate it. But no, that's very interesting to hear anything behind the scenes.
Well, I think, yeah, it's one of the, it's why acting is an art and not really a science. There are scientific elements to it, but it's an art. And like any art, the artist has to learn how to work in different ways and with different mediums. So, one of the things that is kind of the great conundrum of acting in some ways is that your job is to make everything you do look like it's happening for the first time, whether it's the first time or the 50th time. And because film is and TV now is such a visual storytelling medium, sometimes the director isn't going for the acting. They're trying to get a different shot or a different angle to be able to tell the story in a slightly different way or to enhance the visual telling of the story. So it might have absolutely nothing to do with the acting. I mean, the actor still has to be on, but it's not about the actor. The choice to do it again is not about the actor. It's about the visual storytelling. So, which is where the editor comes in as well. The editor is as I always say, film and television is not an actor's art. It's not an actor's medium. There is an art to what an actor does, but it's a director and an editor's art. And you could argue a writer as well, because without a good script that helps the director visualize the story, that's why they call it visualizing.
That was something, I got big into screenwriting about 4 years ago. And due to that, you get into more things. You appreciate more of like actors. Cause I look at pages and it was Jordan Peele's movie, Get Out. And he won like the Oscar for best screenplay. And I looked at that screenplay and I read it over and I'm like, this is good, but this is nothing to what came on screen. And it gave me such an appreciation for the acting and directing. And even more so now, I almost think almost the most important thing now is editing. When I watch a show that is well edited, like paced and all that, it stands out. And when you watch something that may be poorly edited, it almost can change the story in just the way that it's edited. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I hope that's something people can really appreciate, is give that editor credit in movies and everything for really capturing like the feel of a story.
Yeah, and there's this, I mean, it's all collaborative, you know. I mean, a film would never get made without all of the elements, you know, and you can include that into that mix, the gaffers, the sparks, the carpenters, the everybody. Without any of those people, the film would never get made. You know, depending on what you're trying to do with the film, obviously. But it is a funny little thing, because, you know, one of the things you can see actors doing this, and I try to do it where it's appropriate, and I certainly teach students that this is something they should be thinking about. And I forget exactly what it's called. I haven't taught screen acting in a few years now, so it's not at the top of my vocabulary list. But let's just call it throwing a glance, throwing the eye line. And it's when an actor, you know, they're doing their acting, and then they go, and that's giving the editor a point to cut to the other person.
Oh yeah.
So you know, there's little things like that and that's where the science of acting comes in. You know, there's technique, and technique is something that actors employ to help tell the story.
That's so interesting. I would never think that an actor would have the editor or the edit in mind when they're acting.
Oh yeah, and savvy actors will do things that make sure that they stay in the cut.
Yeah.
You know, so really good, really talented actors who understand the filmmaking process, or the film or television making process. If they understand how the editor might use their work, they'll do things that make the editor keep them in the shot.
Yeah.
As long as it's not inappropriate. I'm not talking about, you know, stealing the scene or anything like that, but, you know, you can increase your screen time by doing some clever technique stuff.
Is that one of the lessons you teach that you'll have in there?
I think I've talked about that with students, but, you know, no, more the kind of screen acting I've taught in the past has more to do with hitting marks, eye lines, you know, your relationship with the camera, becoming comfortable with the camera, you know, stuff like that.
So going back to voice acting, and we talked about how you've voiced Geralt in all 3 of the Witcher games. Is there any other characters in the Witcher games that you would have liked to do the voice for?
John Schwab plays Dandelion in The Witcher. In The Witcher 3. I don't know if Dandelion, I can't remember if Dandelion comes into Witcher 2. I think he does. But he's a significant character in Witcher 3. And I just love, John does a fantastic job. So, you know, I don't think I could have, John just plays himself as Dandelion, basically. Yeah, he's a big goofy guy. He's lovely. I really enjoy John's energy, and he put a lot of his own energy into Dandelion. But Dandelion gets to say some wonderful things. You know, he's a great character. So yeah, and he's like the complete opposite of Geralt. So I tend to get cast in the Geralt-y kind of roles in games. You know, the gruff anti-hero, or the reluctant hero. That kind of character. So anytime I get a chance to play somebody who's more flamboyant or has a very different energy, I love it. I would have loved to play Dandelion.
That's why their on-scene moments together are so good as well, because there is such a contrast between them. And another one that is a big favorite of Brett and I is Dijkstra. We thought that their scenes together were just amazing, and his voice actor did such a good job as well.
Yeah, he did. And he's yeah, he's one of those. I mean, there's so many good characters in The Witcher 3.
Yeah.
It's just the writers did a really good job of fleshing those characters out. The Baron, the Bloody
Yeah.
Baron, is another great character.
Hmm.
I would have also perhaps liked to have played one of the elves. I don't know who, but those are good characters.
Let's see if they ever bring back Isengrim. Maybe you can double as him.
Isengrim. Who's Isengrim?
Isengrim was who Yorvith was based on. He was the commando leader that left at the end of the books with Dijkstra and Boreas Munn, the Iron Wolf.
That's
there
right. Yeah.
Play the White Wolf and the Iron Wolf. Perfect. Look, we've just settled it. We just settled it right there. What was your favorites, or do you have one, or one of singular memory of working on The Witcher? Did anything stand out from all of those years that you can harken back to and either make you smile or be very fond of?
Well, I can't think of particular moments, but because we certainly for Witcher 2 and Witcher 3, because I was working with the same team of directors for both games and largely the same few engineers as well. One of the things that really stands out for me doing The Witcher is just the friendships that were forged over the time, because Witcher 2 and 3 were recorded over a period of 5 years, maybe 6.
Yeah.
Maybe longer. I don't remember. And there were some absolutely lovely people who I met and worked with during that time, who I haven't had the opportunity to work with since, unfortunately. Just happenstance, not for any other reason. But yeah, James Batley was the engineer for a good portion of that work, and Duncan was one of the engineers. He did a lot of Witcher 2, and he's a lovely guy. And Kate Saxon was the kind of lead director on both Witcher 2 and Witcher 3, and lovely director to work with. And Damien, I'm trying to remember his surname, and just on the spot, I'm suddenly forgetting. And Damien and Mark Healy, they were the three main directors. Damien Goodwin. So if I wasn't working with Kate, I was working with Mark or Damien, and I got to know all three of them really very well. So what it gave us was a really, really lovely, supportive, comfortable working environment. Quite often I go into sessions and I don't know the engineer, or maybe I've worked with them once or twice. I don't know the director. And not that that's a bad thing. It's nice to meet new people and work with new people. And a director I've worked with several times recently who I've really enjoyed working with, Holly Redaway. She was fantastic. But I've only worked with her twice now, I think. But when you work with the same team of people over a period of 5 or 6 years, and you're not recording all the time, recording for 2 or 3 days, 4 hours a day, and then you take, a couple weeks off, and then you go in again. But that level of comfort that you develop is consistent. And so it's like slipping into a warm bath. You go in, and even if you don't know what you're going to be recording for the day, you go in and those people and you trust those people and you have a laugh with those people as well. So that, I think, is the key thing that stands out from my experience from Witcher 3. But there is one other thing that does stand out, and it's a story I do like to tell, because I think it's illustrative of the fact that we're all working together on these things. You're not in a silo. I went in for a recording session for Witcher 3 one day, and the director pulled me into the engineer's room, and which has an actual professional name. I just can't think of it at the moment. Control room. And she said, well, me and James were just looking at the script for today, and we're concerned. We think that it steps over a line that we shouldn't be going over.
Oh.
And so she gave me the script, and I read through it, and I was like, "Ooh, yeah, I agree." So we all agreed that we would call CD Projekt, and we called the team at CD Projekt, who were our script advisors, and we laid out our concerns, and they said, "Okay, right, just hold off on recording that for now, and just record something else, and we'll get back to you." And they came back to us and said, "Okay, yeah, we see your point. We're going to rewrite that whole thing, so
Wow.
let's not record that today." And that stood out because that doesn't happen very often.
Hmm.
In fact, that's the only time ever that has happened to me on a game. And I've done, I don't know how many games. I've been working consistently in games since 1999. So, lots and lots of games, and that's never happened before. So that was one of those moments where the collaborative nature of this thing that we do, even if it sometimes doesn't feel that way, it absolutely is.
Yeah.
We're all contributing our, ourselves, our creativity, and our ethical responsibilities to the end product as well.
Yeah, because maybe if you guys didn't have that such close relationship, you might not have felt as comfortable saying to each other, I don't think we should go ahead with this, and actually taking it back to CDPR. So
yeah, we didn't go to them with an ultimatum saying we're not recording this. We just went, look, we have some concerns about this, and we think you should consider our concerns, because our concerns are reflective of society's expectations and social and political mores and values and everything else. So,
well, I can only imagine, because there's this in The Witcher 3, there's some harsh stuff in there, images and stuff said. So wow, I can only just imagine what that might have been.
Yeah. Well, I've said it under other interviews what it was. It was a storyline about pedophilia. So the subject of the storyline was heavy enough, but also the story that was told, I don't remember the details of what the story was. We never recorded it. So, but I just remember reading through the script and going, whoa.
Yeah, it's a bit much.
Yeah.
Was there ever any talk of Geralt having like a British or an English accent in the game?
I don't know. I was never asked. I was just told to do
American.
Yeah, do American. And then actually my Geralt voice is very slightly mid-Atlantic, just very slightly mid-Atlantic. But I think I did ask that at one point. I said, wow, or I commented on it. It's interesting. All the Witchers have American voices.
Yeah.
All the dwarves have Scottish voices. They have to. Dwarves always have to be Scottish. I don't know when that, convention was agreed upon, but it was. All the Scoia'tael and the elves and stuff, they tend to have English, kind of RP accents. Everybody else in the world has English accents largely, except for the not the Redanians, the
like the Nilfgaardians.
Nilfgaardians, they have that kind of faux Dutch kind of thing going on. Yeah, I don't know who made those decisions. Somebody at CD Projekt probably.
Well, there's one other person that we already mentioned that is close to Geralt that also has an American accent that sticks out, which would be Dandelion.
Of course.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's like Geralt and Dandelion. Like, I get the Witchers having it because, especially from a European aspect, they've been dulled of all these senses. Well, they're American. Okay, perfect. Like they're not that all bright. They do with that. Good with the sword, good with the weapon. They're Americans. They're going to talk like Americans. But everybody else that comes into that game has some kind of different accent. If I remember that correctly. Again, we're playing through. We should remember that, Lucy.
I know.
But except Dandelion, who has, again, a very straightforward accent of, you would say, almost like you said, a mid-Atlantic, a Midwest. There's no real inflection to it that I can pick up on. That would be American. And so that decision there, I've always wanted to ask somebody where that came into, to give Dandelion the American accent.
Interesting. And I think I could be wrong about this, but thinking about John, he has kind of his natural accent is kind of West Coast US. And I think that's what he gives to Dandelion as well. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of ironic as well, because John Schwab and I, we lived in the same town at the very same time.
Oh.
Or I think it was the same time. We had a little small town called 29 Palms, California. And I was in junior high, and I think he was at the high school at the same time.
Oh, and then you ended up on the game however many
That's small
years later,
world.
isn't it?
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't know each other.
Yeah.
You know, it came up. I saw on something he posted that he was something about his high school in 29 Palms, and I was like, what?
What are the odds of that?
Did you actually, like during recording, did you get to meet a lot of the other voice actors at the time?
No, I only met. I'm confused about this now, but I think I only met Jamie Barbakoff. I think I knew John Schwab a little bit because I'd auditioned for him and met him at other events and things like that. We'd run into each other at various places and various times, but we weren't like hanging out,
Yeah.
you know, on the weekends or anything like that. But I met Jamie Barbakoff. I'm pretty sure it was her. I was coming out of a session recording Geralt, and she was going in to record Triss. And it was just literally a really quick one. I heard the director say something about Jamie being outside, and I was like, she plays Triss, doesn't she? And Kate said, yeah. So I went out and I said, hello, Triss.
Oh.
And we had a little hello, and then it was like ships in the night though, because she had to go in and do her thing. So
didn't you guys record some lines together recently for like a charity event?
Yeah.
We did a podcast with Julia Hardy, I think the day after you guys recorded that.
Yeah. Oh,
that was
man.
So cool.
I love Julia. I adore Julia, actually.
She's funny.
She is so funny. She's a great laugh as well. Yeah, I'd say we're friends. I think we're friends. I'm sure she would say we're friends.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, that live reading looked pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really great fun, actually, because we never, it's a rarity unless you're doing performance capture. It's a rarity that game voice actors are ever in the same room at the same time.
As I say, y'all are both friends of the podcast now. And she was the one that we mentioned earlier that we just talked for so long that it ran into
Jamie.
What she needed. Yeah, you ran for so long. It was like, oh, we got it. So that one.
Julia.
Oh, Julia. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. She'll
Julia.
talk your ear off. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you listen to that episode, if anyone goes back and listens to that one, yeah, it kind of abruptly ends. You know, we're going. It's like, oh, all right, gotta go. And then within like a couple of minutes, we kind of just like bring it all the way back down.
Yeah, Julia.
One other thing,
I have stories about Julia. We had after one BAFTA Game Awards launch party. I have this fantastic memory of me and Julia, both a little bit tipsy, wandering through Soho in London, going to her then boyfriend's restaurant to try and get him to make us macaroni and cheese. He ended up not being there, so we didn't get mac and cheese. But yeah.
Drunken stroll around London to get mac and cheese.
Looking for mac and cheese.
There you go. All right, so one other thing, I've recently played a game that you were a part of called Tales of Iron.
Mm.
And you, as far as I can tell so far after 3 hours of playing, you were the only voice in that game. And
that's true. I think I'm the only. Yeah.
Yeah, the way they do it, it's like rats in this medieval fantasy thing. And they just kind of do their rat noises and they show pictures of what they mean. And you're the narrator there. And it sure sounded like you were having a lot of fun with it. There were some puns thrown in there that you really seemed to lean into. And so with something like that, where you get to be a narrator, as opposed to, you know, the acting of a character, would you say that would it be more fun because it's different?
Do you know, it's a weird one because lately I've been getting cast in narrator roles, and I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it's coincidence. I'd like to think I'm good at it. Yeah. Yeah, Tales of Iron was really good fun. I mean, when I was first approached by the developers about that, they showed me some of the concept art, and I was just like, "This looks fantastic!"
It looks so good. Yeah.
It's such great art. For the it's just a beautiful game, visually beautiful. So but it's also great, great combat and good storyline and all that stuff. But yeah, it was great fun to record because I did get to, as you describe it, lean into those puns and things like that, And it was funny. Some of the writing is just really, really clever. So I enjoyed it just to enjoy some kind of fun, cheeky, play on word kind of stuff,
It looked
was
really
great
cool.
fun.
Yeah, I was watching Brett stream it a little bit last night, and I remember saying like the combat. I was thinking it was going to be super simple, platformy game, but the combat looked difficult and like complex, and I was quite impressed by it. Actually, I kind of want to play it now.
Yeah, when I first fired up Tales of Iron, I didn't change the settings in it. You've got 3 choices of settings.
Yeah,
there's easy, normal, and tear my head off kind of settings. And I just played on the normal, and I could not get past, like, I was only like 20 minutes into the game, and I just kept dying and dying and dying. I couldn't do it. And eventually I gave up, and I went back and I started a new game on these Please Don't Hurt Me, Mama.
Fairy tale mode, they call it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And again, it's one of those, it's called like a 2D Souls type thing where it is. It's the artwork is honestly what drew it to me the first, because my whole thing is like medieval Europe, medieval history. And this is, very much a high medieval setting where it kind of straddles. I say medieval, it really straddles like The Witcher 3, that late medieval, early modern kind of style with especially the buildings and the architecture and all that. But very much, plate armor, swords, axes, all that fun stuff. Yeah. And yes, Lucy, you said it's got you wanting to play it. It has me wanting to play Elden Ring because the point of it is, like, you're right. You play it and you get to part of combat. And the first time, most of the time, you're just going to get wiped. You're going to get knocked out. And then the second time you're always a little better until especially by the end of those 3 hours, it took me 4 or 5 times. And you have that where you knock them down just a little bit by little, and then you die at the end and you get frustrated, but instantly it's like, okay, now I got it. Now I know what to do.
That is the Elden Ring mentality.
Yeah. And that's what it's like. It's fantastic.
I hate that.
I thought I would too. I thought I would too. And Lucy knows this. And I play every game. Maybe I've changed now. I think I might have changed. I always play every game, especially a game like The Witcher 3 on the story mode, because I'm there for the story. Like, I'm not there for the combat. And I'll just be honest. The Witcher 3, when I first played it, the combat was a little wonky, the movements. I think I've just gotten used to it and other things. But that is one thing. As I was playing on stream yesterday, I just was like, do I want to play on easy? I'm like, no, I need to play the way it's supposed to. And I thought that I would get frustrated with it, but I don't know if the competitive nature in me came out. But once you die quickly, it's like, okay, I'm going to get this.
One more time.
I got this.
That's like my catchphrase in my stream when I die. It's like, one more time. And everyone's like, okay.
Daft Punk right there.
2 hours later.
Yes, I think I don't have that kind of competitive streak. I'm competitive, I want to win things. I don't want to work too hard for it.
That's totally fair. So I have one last question about The Witcher. And that was, have you ever had a chance to talk all things Geralt with the newest Geralt, Henry Cavill?
Yes, I have.
How'd that go?
No. Well, he is a lovely, lovely guy, first off. My own personal interaction with him, not that other people have said any different that I've heard, but my interaction with him was really, really pleasant. He's generous. He's just a really big, sweet guy.
Oh.
And he is big. He is big. He bless him. He he DM'd me on Instagram.
Oh.
And I just got this message saying, "Hey, Doug, season 1 Netflix premiere is happening on this date, blah, 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 blah. I was wondering if you wanted to come.
Oh, bless him.
And come hang out with me and some of the cast and stuff. And yeah, do you want to come?" And I looked at this message and I was like, because I get weird messages. I get DMs from people doing all kinds of weird stuff,
Yeah.
people who I've never met. Oh man, all you need is a little bit of notoriety, or I call myself like a niche celebrity, because it's not like I'm not like Henry Cavill, but people who want to know more about voice actors and characters and stuff like that, they end up hearing about me and stuff.
Yeah.
So I get these DMs that are just like wacky. I get DMs from people who think that I want to be their best friend. And I'm just like, dude, I don't even know who you are, but I got this message from Henry, and my first thought was, this isn't Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
This is somebody pretending to be Henry Cavill.
That's the kind of DMs I get. I get DMs from people pretending to be Henry Cavill all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I get people DMing me, asking me to put them in touch with Henry Cavill because they're so in love with him. And I'm just like, what? Why? Why are you asking me this?
As if you're going to be like, sure, here's his number.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which I don't have anyways. But no, I replied to his message basically saying, if this is really Henry, then yes, I would love to. And he wrote back a short while. He said, I totally understand. Yes, it is me. I will prove it to you. Currently on a plane going to Sierra Leone or something like that. It was some exotic place for work, I guess. I'll have someone from my office, because actors like Henry Cavill, they have offices with people in them. Yeah. So anyways, I went to the season 1 premiere and I met him and his family, who were all lovely, and met some of the cast, and they were all very nice. And yeah, it was lovely. There was an after event that I was invited to as well. And I went, and there was kind of the main event where everybody was hanging out. And then Henry had organized a private room for him and his family and some select people, so that they could, so he could escape, I imagine, and not feel on show, but also so that he and other people could have more, I don't know, private conversations or whatever. So he invited me into that room, and we had a lovely chat about Geralt and about the Netflix series and about the games and about the books and all kinds of stuff. And we talked about acting, and we talked about Hollywood, and we talked about the industry. And yeah, it was lovely. He's a really lovely guy.
Everyone
and
seems
I think
to
he's
say that
great
about him as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he's great as Geralt. I think he's a fantastic Geralt.
I've really enjoyed the Netflix series. It was my first, like the Netflix series was the first Witcher thing I ever saw, which led me to the game. So yeah, I think it's a lot of people seem to do game, books, Netflix. So I feel like I've done it all the wrong way around, but it was quite nice to have no preconception of what it was supposed to be or what it was, meant to be like.
Yeah, it's been really interesting for me because I obviously the books weren't out in English when I did Witcher 1. So I didn't get to the books. They didn't start coming out in English until I think halfway through Witcher 2 recording. Oh, wow. So obviously I've done the games, which depart from the books slightly. I think they're supposed to happen after the books, but that can't be, because if you've read the books, you know how the books end. So the games can't happen. But anyways, so the games depart in their storylines partly from the books, although it's all based on the books. And then the Netflix series departs even more.
Yeah.
I feel. So I struggle with the Netflix series a little bit, and I have to remind myself that I have to watch the Netflix series for its own merits, on its own 2 feet. I can't compare them because although they're all 3 of these things are in the same world, they're not the same stories necessarily. So
Everyone's
have
own
to
vision.
exactly. Yeah, the writers for the Netflix series had things they wanted to do, so they did them.
I've started reading the books, but I'm trying to like purposefully stay behind the Netflix series, just so when Brett and I discuss it on the podcast, we have kind of like different ideas of what it could have been or would have been. And also, I'm really slow at reading, so that's my excuse.
Yeah, one of the things that I love in the books, or that I loved when I read the books, and we don't see this as much in the games as it happens in the books. It happens a little bit, but not much that I can remember anyways, is the story of Siri growing up. Because in the books, she does some growing up. That's a fascinating part of the whole book journey. And we see a bit of that in the games. I think a bit more in the games than we see in the Netflix series. But it feels like in the Netflix series, she's suddenly grown up.
Yeah.
You know, and she's summoning creatures into Kaer Morhen and all this stuff that doesn't happen in the games or the books. That doesn't happen. So purists hate it.
They do.
Yeah.
Basically,
I try not to be a purist.
Yeah, and that took in what you said there about judging it on its own merits. You can tell if people go back and listen to Lucy and I cover season 2. We almost have that in real time throughout the episodes, where you, like you said, you come to terms with certain things. And a big thing for me with season 1, and I think it was a big thing for a lot of people. And like you said there, I'm not a gatekeeper. I'm a purist when it comes to the books, if we're talking about the books, but this isn't the books. And I don't like people in anything that gatekeep. It's just bad. It's just negative, just in general. And going back to season 1, it was the whole Siri and Brokilon thing, that in the show, Siri and Geralt come face to face literally a minute before season 1 ends. They didn't have that meeting in Brokilon where Geralt sends Siri away and Siri's crying, saying, "Hey, you can't send me away. I'm your destiny." And that haunts Geralt. And to me, like, that's everything about those short stories. And again, it's neither here nor there to take it into what it is. So where it's at in the series now, I'm almost interested in the stuff that they're going to do new, because like you said, we know stuff that happened in the books. They've cut certain things out. A lot of stuff I wanted in there, they didn't do, like Scheherazade and the attack on the convoy. They didn't put that in. It's my favorite thing ever. So at this point right now, we know from leaks something big's going to happen. And I've spoiled so much stuff for Lucy. Like I can't, we can't, so in The Witcher 3, like we just talked about when I think I mentioned this. Oh, I mentioned this before we started recording our last video for 983. Okay, I won't get into the nitty gritty, but we talked about something in the episode before this about Ciri's background and the tattoo she has of the rose and who that's of. The relationship between Ciri and Missel is, it's very complicated, if you want to call it that. We talked about it on the last episode, but it's something that I have to talk about on the podcast, and I have to ruin that. I have to spoil that for Lucy. So,
but I don't mind. I'm the type of person, like, sometimes I like reading like the plot of stuff. Like I've been watching The Boys recently, which is based off a set of comics. And sometimes my curiosity just gets the better of me. And I'm just Googling like, how do The Boys comics end?
Yep. I already know. I looked it up too. I looked up at the end of like the second season.
Yeah. So sometimes I don't mind knowing, because I also know it's not ever going to be exactly the same. I kind of sometimes like to know, but for the most part of The Witcher, I've kept most things a secret, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's a perfect example, Brett, of what I was talking about. About Siri growing up, because that's a huge part of what happens in the books that I really enjoyed. So to not see some of that and how it shapes Siri and how that shapes who she becomes, I was kind of like, oh,
yeah. Some of the new stuff they've added, though, has been so good. Like, for example, in series 1, the whole Yennefer backstory, I thought kind of carried series 1. I loved seeing, that her whole thing. And God, the name of the place escapes me now, but I just thought her whole backstory was in Aretusa. I thought that was incredible. So we know that they can do good new stuff also.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we have one more question here before we go to these community quick hit questions from the audience, if you will. what would you say your dream role or dream project would be if you could do it? Budget's not a thing. You can direct, write, whatever you want to do. You can snap your fingers and this is going to be your dream role or project. What would it be?
I mean, are we talking real world? This, if money were no object,
Yeah.
and I knew the right
it's
people,
whatever
kind
you
of
want.
thing.
Whatever.
So not something that's already been done.
I mean, it can be a remake of something, if you will. Because, like, for me, my favorite movie of all time is Casablanca. And while I do think it holds up, it's black and white. It's from like 80 years ago. Some kind of remake of that, to bring it to a newer audience, I think would be amazing to do. So it can be something you can remake or redo or whatever.
That gets into the realms of fantasy, though. So I'm gonna go with this. I would love to remake the Raiders of the Lost Ark series and play Indy.
Oh, class.
I just love, I mean, I love that character. I just love that character. I mean, that's the Harrison Ford character, isn't it? Really, you know, because Han Solo is Indy. It's, you know, they're practically the same character. But I've always loved those films. And yeah, I would just love to have a crack at playing Indiana Jones. That would be fun.
Oh man, I need to rewatch those. I haven't watched them in so long.
But it more real worldy, because that's not going to happen. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm reading a book now that I would love to see made into a film. And actually, another series of books that the same author wrote, I just love his writing. And I think his books are really, really, they're ripe for a cinematic telling. I'm trying to remember his name. R. Haywood, I want to say. R. Haywood. The book I'm currently reading is called Earthship. Something like that. Earthship. It's
I see one called Worldship.
Worldship. That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I read it on my Kindle, so I don't see the title all the time, you know, on a physical book. I'm just reading the book in my Kindle. But I'm loving it. I love it. And I remember he wrote this other series of 3 books. Starts with one called Extraction, I think it is. Extraction, Extinction, and I forget what the other one is. Extraction, Extinction. Anyways, there's 3 of them, and they all are kind of similar. But his characters are just amazing. And if I were in a position where I could buy the rights to something to turn into a film or a series of films or a TV series, I would buy Extraction, and I would make it into a TV series. I think it's such a beautiful book. It's about, I'll give you the basic lowdown. I won't give anything away, but it's about a scientist who develops a time machine. And I don't even remember what the whole plot is about, but basically the scientist goes back in time and kidnaps heroes from famous moments in history, real people, and brings them into the present, into the future, so that they can combat something that's happening in this future time that needs people who have the courage and the skills in some way or another to do what is needed. But they have these fantastic characters, it's funny. They're 3-dimensional. They have these whole backstories, and it's just funny. And the dialogue, oh my God, the dialogue is so witty. So yeah, if I knew people, and if someone with money and influence said to me, Doug, I think for whatever reason, I think you have a genius mind. I bet you've got some great ideas. What do you want to be in control of? I'd say I want to make a TV series of Extraction.
Well, the next time you hit up a Netflix get together, a Netflix party, a Netflix premiere, there you go.
I'd be surprised actually if someone hasn't already bought the rights.
World Ship, is that what you said?
World Ship, yeah, I think it's a one-off. I don't know. I haven't gotten to the end of the first book yet, but yeah, it's wonderful. It's about this fleet. It's Earth is destroyed by a comet or something like that, but they know this is going to happen like 60 years before it's going to hit. So they try various things to try and save the Earth, but they can't in the end. So they build this fleet of ships to take some of humanity into space to try to find a new Earth. Right. So the book starts, they're already up in space. You learn the backstory as you go. And they've been floating around. No, I say floating. They're all going around looking for a habitable planet, and they've been doing this for like 200 years now. So everybody on the ships has been born on the ships, and all this stuff. Anyways, so we're introduced to these characters who do different things on the ships. I don't want to give too much away.
There we go.
It's really good. I'm really enjoying it.
We'll look out for it on Netflix then.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's all of our questions. Is that right, Brett? And we can move on to some that we've had in comments on our various forms of social media. So thank you everyone for sending them in. The first one we have is from Dare, and she asks, Doug, what is your favorite quote or scene from the games?
I don't have a favorite quote. I mean, there's all kinds of things like, winds howling.
Yeah.
Or damn, you're ugly.
Yeah.
The classics. Yeah, the classics.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think my favorite scene, I think it's always been, depending on the choices you make, there's a cut scene of Geralt and Ciri. I mean, there's the one once he finds her as well. That's really, really sweet.
Yeah.
But there's one, and I can't remember where it happens in the game. I think it's a memory that Geralt has at some point. And it's him and Ciri. They are, I get this all mixed up. It's the feeling of the scene, not the actual scene that I go back to. Basically, it's a very father-daughter-y kind of scene where they're in a meadow and they're laying on the grass, looking up at the trees and the wind and stuff like that. And there's a piggyback ride. I don't know how that happens because he's got his swords on his back, but it's a cut scene that I remember when I played the game and that was unlocked. I just sat there kind of going, this is so sweet.
Mm-hmm. I remember a moment where she kind of runs into his arms. I think it's when he finds her in the Isle of Mists and you see all his memories come back to him where she's like so small again and she runs up to him. It's so sweet.
Yeah. I think most of the things that I really liked about the game involved Ciri in some way. But, something else I really liked, and I this is one of the things I think the game just got so right, is their good manipulation of atmosphere. I remember the first time walking into Crookback Bog.
Oh.
Just before you meet the three sisters. And the feeling of creepiness and foreboding that I felt playing the game. And that's something I remember and really appreciate it. I was like, oh man, they've done this so well. I'm waiting for the jump scare,
Yeah.
Like you've talked about, like you mentioned, it's like the atmosphere or the feeling. And when they reunite on the Isle of Mist, that's the only scene, might be the only scene from a video game ever where I've cried and where I have done it before. And I think I did it the 2 times I've played through it on stream. I actually think about cutting my camera because I start crying. Yeah, that's the something more scene. And I remember saying it on the episode we covered when we met the Crones, we're meeting them. It's when they show that tapestry and they start playing Ladies of the Wood, that music.
The music, yeah.
And it's the music of this game. And it's the number one thing that I relate these to. And I know people are tired of it, but I'm going to do it anyway. What makes The Witcher 3 And what makes the Game of Thrones TV series is the music. And when I hear these pieces of music, I don't have to be watching the show or playing the game. I could be out running, in a bright day by a lake. And if I hear Ladies of the Wood get in my ear, I'm just like, oh, okay. It's getting a little chillier. It's getting a little scarier. And that is the number one thing from this game that hit on. And I will always remember the Trail of Treats, walking down there, and Crookback Bog being just like, oh, this is just a place I don't want to be, but I don't want to leave either.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things like that, though. I agree with you about the music and the sound design as well. Yeah. There's a lot memorable about The Witcher 3, And one of the things I love about it too, and I'm going to say this, but I'm not the only one who said it. Professional game reviewers and various other people have said it, in the past. It's a game that probably will never, or will take a long time to become old hat, because it's just so well done. And I think 10 years from now, people will still be discovering The Witcher 3 and falling in love with it.
Especially with that next gen update coming out at the end of this year.
Yeah.
I think it still holds up, like the graphics that they have in the original game. I think it still looks incredible. But so I can't imagine what the update's going to look like.
The mods, even the mods you put on, the graphical mods make it look amazing. That the next gen, I can only imagine what the studio will do with it. But hopefully, I do think people discover it. People have podcasts based on the game, such as this one. So that should help. All right. The next one on here from M. Jags. In what way do you think you are most similar to Geralt?
Well, it's interesting because this is the way I look at this. I think the only way to create a truthful performance in a character is to put a bit of yourself into the character. So I think there are a lot of things that have become similar between me and Geralt. I didn't write him, though. I just perform him. So it's my interpretation of how he undertakes the actions indicated by the script. Is this making sense? I'm getting wanky, I know.
Well, it actually kind of goes into the next question that they had too, is what has voicing him taught you about yourself and about life? So it's kind of in that same vein that you were talking about there.
Yeah, it is kind of, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think in real life, I have occasionally been not a reluctant anti-hero, but the reluctant hero. I can think back to many occasions when something needed to happen and I was the one who stepped in to make that happen. Just as an example, I tweeted about this or something recently. I was on a flight with my family, and my kids were younger. They're 18 and nearly 20 now. And we were on a flight from England to Seattle, Washington to visit my family. And it was a 2-part trip, London to Reykjavik, Iceland, and then Iceland to Seattle. And we were on the Iceland to Seattle leg, and we were about an hour out of Reykjavik, and there was a passenger a few rows ahead of me, big guy, big Icelandic guy, muscles, could very well have been steroids, but obviously a power lifter. And he was just behaving a bit strangely, and I started noticing that the air crew were they were frequently visiting him, and he was getting more and more agitated. And then he just got really agitated and he would not sit down. And at one point there was one male cabin steward and 2 or 3 female. And at one point, one of the smaller cabin crew females and the male guy were literally wrestling this guy, trying to get
Oh my
him to sit
God.
down.
Yeah.
And he was like, I think it was like a medic he didn't intend this. I think that he was medically psychotic. That's what it kind of looked like to me.
Yeah.
But I was just like, they need help. So I got, and everybody else was watching their TVs, and I don't know how many other people noticed it, but nobody got up. And I stood up and I walked forward, and it was the female was behind him and the male was in front of him, and they were trying to get his arms behind his back and force him back to a seat, and he just wouldn't go. And I went up, I said to the female flight attendant, I said, do you guys need some help? And she said, yes, please help me.
Oh, bless her.
And so I just added a little bit of extra muscle and weight to what they were already trying to do. And when we managed to get him to sit down, and then this guy who was I was going to say a sociopath, but that's not what I mean at all. You know, the people who do healing through scents and herbs and things like that. He had a suitcase full of sprays and various things that he was traveling with to do his job in the States. And he started spraying this lavender mist over the guy, and they literally hogtied him to the seat.
Oh
they
God.
Put his hands behind the seat and tied his wrists together behind the seat to stop him getting up. And yeah, it was one of those weird things. But I was the only passenger who stood up and did something. So now that story is how I think I'm similar to Geralt. I think that's the when in my life, when something has needed to happen, even if it wasn't something I wanted to be involved in, I'm often the one who steps in. Not always.
Yeah.
Sometimes someone else steps in first, but you know. Yeah.
That was like your very own little side quest on the plane there.
Yeah, exactly.
We have another question from Rodders, and he asks, what do you think is Geralt's best pickup line?
Best pickup line. I don't even know if he has a pickup line.
I'm trying to remember some of his lines from when you would get into the romancing scenes.
He tells Yen she smells nice.
Oh,
I
at
want
the
to kiss
funeral.
you. Yeah, like he doesn't have any pickup line. He doesn't need him for her though.
You smell wonderful at his funeral. That's my favorite.
Wonderful.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a good one. I don't remember any pickup lines, but I mean, you're reminding me about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if he meant like for you to make up one to be like, what would Geralt do? I don't know, because he's right. When I saw that question, I was like, Geralt doesn't really have them. He just kind of goes around and everybody just wants to bang him, you know?
Yeah, he does. He does though. He does with Yennefer and Triss, and I think with there's a whole flirty thing that happens with Shani, isn't there?
Yeah, Shani, Kira. There's a ton with Kira. Like she's overt. Like, yeah, she's basically just spreading her legs like when you meet. Yeah.
Oh, well, she likes the strong silent type, I guess.
There you go. All right,
let's go with you smell wonderful at this funeral. Let's go with that one.
There we go.
I reckon that's the best.
Absolute classic. This one is from Spenny. What advice would you give to people trying to get into voice acting?
Don't.
There you go. All right, Lucy, you got the last one.
No, seriously though, what advice would I give to people? No, if you want to do that, if you want to do voice acting in games, go for it, man. You know, you only live once. If it's something you think you want to have a crack at it. Know this though, it is a competitive, tough industry. It's not easy. And there's a lot of things you have to do behind the scenes to generate the luck you're going to need to make it a career. So, you know, don't think if you want to do it, just go into it knowing you're going to have to work hard and you're going to get knocked back a lot. My story is a fortunate one, but remember that I studied acting at university for 7 years.
Wow.
undergrad majoring in theater and with an acting emphasis, and then grad school for 3 years doing an MFA in acting. That is the basis that I had going into this industry. So when the accidental opportunity emerged, I had a whole wealth of experience and training behind me to support me on the journey. I meet a lot of people who haven't done any acting, but they love the idea of voice acting. And I always say to them, well, go for it. But, know it's going to be difficult. And my advice to you is to get some acting classes, because if for no other reason than to learn the vocabulary that your director is going to be talking to you with, that's the advice I would give, is go into it knowing it's a challenge and you're going to get knocked back. And there's some advice for people in general going into any art form, but the advice given to me by somebody was going into an acting career was persist.
Yeah, love that. And our last one is from Harry, and it is, we might have already went over this, but it's, what is your favorite phrase of Geralt?
Come on, Roach.
Damn it, Roach. I like damn it, Roach.
Yeah.
I think I retweeted something recently where there was like a horse on a roof or something. And I retweeted on our account with damn it, Roach, and it got a lot of likes. So yeah, I think that's a community favorite one as well. So that's all we have for questions. But just as a last wee thing to talk about, we did some fundraising, for a charity that you are a patron for, and it's a charity called Safe in Our World. And it's a charity all about getting rid of the stigma around speaking about mental health, particularly within the video games industry. And I would love to just know what sort of work you do and how you got involved with the charity, Doug.
Well, first of all, thank you guys for, raising that money. It's fantastic. I'm a patron for Safe in Our World. When the organization was being set up, by, among other people, Neil Broadhead, who I know from, it's Neil from Wired Productions, I think. Sorry, excuse me. Oh my goodness. So a guy I had worked with on the publishing side, he was one of the people setting Safe in Our World up. And they were looking for people from the industry and for people who have some kind of reach or influence to be part of their patron group and their ambassadors group. And he approached me about becoming a patron. And when he described what they were putting together, I just thought, well, that's fantastic, and that's certainly something that's needed. And this is all post-COVID as well. So I think Safe in Our World was set up in, I want to say, 2019.
So it's relatively new then.
It's relatively new. Yeah. And I think the official launch wasn't until 2020. But they approached me when they don't think they even had a website yet. I just liked the idea of what was being described. And I was like, well, yeah, of course. Yeah, I'd like to be part of that. And I, part of the reason I wanted to support them with this podcast is because I haven't had the opportunity to support them on very much so far. I've tried. There have been a number of opportunities that I wanted to take part in, but then for one reason or another I couldn't. So I just thought, I'm an ambassador for another charity called Special Effect, which is about accessibility and gaming, they're pretty cool as well. So, and I've been able to do quite a lot for them actually. So I thought, well, here's an opportunity. I can do something for Safe in Our World. It's not just about the money; it's about awareness as well.
Yeah.
So, and that's what the whole charity is about. It's about awareness. It's about mental health. It's about, in the game development world, but also among players, there are a lot of people with mental health issues, and they don't know how to share it or what to do about it or where to go. So Safe in Our World is a place to go to find out more, even if it just sends you to another website with more information. But there's a lot of resources on the Safe in Our World website that about all kinds of things, about drug and alcohol addiction, about insomnia, about depression, about oh my goodness, you pretty much you name it, and it's on there. Information about how to tackle those things, about who to go to, where to go for support, all kinds of stuff like that. So there's my pitch for Safe in Our World.
It kind of tied in with our podcast really well, because majority of our listeners, I imagine, will be gamers in the video game industry somehow. And then the stream we did on Twitch, obviously everyone on there is into gaming as well. So I think everyone really related with it. And I forgot to say how much we raised. We raised £564.20. So super proud of everybody that donated. It was amazing. The stream was good fun. And Doug, you were there for quite a long time as well. So it was really nice having you around. One part of the stream was a little bit controversial. And it was where Brett and I did a tier list of the Witcher 3 characters. I think you were around for a little bit of that, Doug. And you, Doug, and quite a lot of other people were a little bit upset with us. So I thought to round off today's podcast, I would give you a chance to say what amendments you would make to our list. So I'm going to share my screen here.
Tiering characters, my goodness.
Okay, so this is the tier list that Brett and I put together as part of our charity stream, and people weren't very happy with us. So Doug, if there's any amendments you think we should make, go ahead.
Okay, well, I agree with the top tier.
Yeah,
I mean, those are all fantastic characters, I suppose for myself, and I think this is.
We should also preface this. This is how much we would like them, not how good of a character they are.
Okay,
like them if you met them in real life?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, obviously, you have like Olgierd on, look in B right there, you have Master Mirror and Olgierd in there. Like, those would be, near the top if it would be, but I don't want to meet them in real life. I don't want to deal with them. Like, I don't like them. They're not good people,
Who's this dude next to Roach? Not Dijkstra.
This is Bart the troll.
It's a rock troll.
Oh,
Bart the rock troll. Yeah.
Bart the rock troll. He's funny.
Yeah.
I would put Triss in the top tier.
This caused the most controversy.
Yeah, I think that was the thing that I wrote in the chat was about Triss. I mean, how can Priscilla be higher than Triss?
That's a Lucy pick.
I like Priscilla. I think Priscilla's just unproblematic. She is a great singer, writes one of the best songs in the game.
The Kingfisher, the Rosemary in Time. Not the King. Wait, what'd they call it? Crap. What'd they call it after the Rosemary in Time?
Oh, what did Dandelion rename it to?
Oh, what did they rename it to?
That's a good question. I can't remember.
Whatever it is. I'd want to go there.
Oh, is that Kira Metz down in C?
Yeah.
She is a bit snooty, to be honest, but
I didn't like. My main gripe with Kira is obviously there's a moment in the game where you can or can't sleep with her, hook up with her, or whatever, and then she puts you to sleep and steals your stuff.
Yeah,
and I just thought that's really questionable behavior, Kira. As much as I love her quips and everything, that's what knocked her down a few tiers for me.
I'm just looking down on at the people who aren't even in the tier.
Yeah, there's a few. There was too many.
We went so long.
Is that Zoltan Chive?
Zoltan, I think I think we put him somewhere, did we not? Is this Zoltan? This is Zoltan here.
Yeah, Zoltan's
that's Zoltan.
On A, yeah.
Is there another drawer? Oh, that's Cleaver.
This is Cleaver.
That's Cleaver.
Oh, that's Cleaver.
Yeah, the gangster.
I forget sometimes.
Yeah.
So if it was you, though, you would put Triss up to the top.
I would put Triss at least higher up.
Okay, we can settle on
But that's me. That's because I tend to I've always liked redheads. It started with Molly Ringwald when I was 14.
See, and that's what we've talked about so much. Like, so many people that like Triss is because they're kind of attracted to her, and which she is absolutely. Like, when you play The Witcher 3, we even talked about it. That playing The Witcher 3, I'm like, man, I'm kind of starting to like Triss more. Because at the time in Novigrad with her, you just, you're there. It's traumatic for both at times. So she started off in C. We reluctantly put her in B, and now we've reluctantly bumped her up to A. So the next time we bring this up, She's going to be in that S tier, but you know what? Over my dead body. Will she go to S tier? I will die on that hill.
And Triss did.
Oh, well, you know what? She's right next. Yeah, oh, look at that. Look at that. Perfect. And another change from the show, they didn't put her name on there. The 14th of the Hill. She's not the 14th of the Hill in the show. Anyway, we talked about that. But she's next to the botchling there. She's next to the botchling there. So perfect. She can stay there.
Well, you wouldn't want to meet a botchling in real life, would you?
Why is the botchling in A? I just realized that.
I actually don't know why.
Who conned us to put that in A? Was that an accident?
Possibly because the
Did we think that was
dangerous.
Uma?
Maybe.
Did we think that was
here.
Uma? Yeah, but we thought that was Uma. Okay.
Possibly.
Johnny's in
Johnny's up in S as well.
S. Johnny, Roach, Bart, and Uma.
Yeah.
They're up there. And then Regis and Dijkstra. Regis, yeah, Regis.
Yeah, it was mainly Triss that caused the commotion, but I'm glad we've agreed.
No, there were a lot of people. There were people super yelling about who was it? There was Zoltan was another one. People were saying we're S, which that would be okay. That'd be okay. But he didn't stick with the Hansa, so I got to keep the Hansa that was at Stiga. They go S tier. That's why Regis is up there. The other ones couldn't make it though. They couldn't make it to The Witcher 3. Okay, well, there. Now it's settled.
Now it's settled. Yeah.
Now we can set it. Now we can set it.
Now we can save and
except
download
for that botchling.
The botchling. Take the botchling out.
I think we should put the botchling down here because it's dangerous.
I think we did it. Yeah. Well, okay. You're right. It's the botchling. It's not Dea. It's the botchling before. No, so we'll put that in there. Okay.
Okay. I'm locking it in.
That'll be good.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Okay. Well, I think with that, we have come to the end. Sorry, Mark. That's who edits.
Editor.
He could do with that. But yes, again, thank you again for the awareness of the charity safe in our world. Massive, 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 massive thank you to our community. 564 pounds and 20 cents. That's roughly, I think it's 650, somewhere around there, American dollars.
Nice.
So the Americans can now go, oh, okay. No, in that sense. We didn't really mention a lot at the beginning. Probably a lot of first-time listeners, those hanging around. We're in the middle of covering The Witcher 3. We're at the end of Skellige. After this, we'll get to our Skellige side quest. If you have watched the show, we have previous interviews with Misha Simpson, who plays Francesca, Paul Bullion, who plays Lambert, and mentioned before, Julia Hardy, the host of WitcherCon. And as soon as I say WitcherCon, I'm like, there's not a WitcherCon this year, but we'll go through all that. So again, make sure to check those out. We covered all of The Witcher season 2, and again, all of The Witcher 3 main story up to the end of the first part of Skellige. You can find us on Twitter, Witcher Podcast, email witcherpod@gmail.com, Instagram @WitcherPod, and the link to the Discord will be in there. There is a channel specifically for the podcast. That's where a lot of these questions came from. We put a lot of news in there. There were a lot of tidbits, little intros, stuff in there as well. And Doug, is there anywhere we can find you would like to promote, or any kind of upcoming projects you can hint at, or anything recent you want to talk about?
Well, you can find me on Twitter. It's just @DCockle, DCOCKLE on Twitter. Instagram, it's just Doug Cockle. But be careful on Instagram. If it says Doug Cockle 10 or Doug Cockle 6 or anything, that's not me. There's also, I think, a Cockle Doug. It isn't me. So on Facebook and Instagram, there are a number of people who are trying to pose as me. I say a number, it's only like 2 or 3 as far as I can tell, but they've been causing a bit of trouble. So look for the blue tick on Twitter for me, and I can't get a blue tick on Instagram because they're basically Meta, and Meta doesn't like people. So sorry, that's not an official line. That's just my personal experience with them.
Fair.
I've applied like 6 times to be verified on Instagram, and they just never do it.
That's so weird.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I've like given them my passport details, everything, you go through the whole application process and stuff, and they just don't do it. Anyways, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. Things to look out for, something coming out sometime this summer and it's been announced that I'm involved, or at least, yeah, I think it's been announced. It's been announced. So it's a thing called Diofield Chronicle.
Oh,
And I haven't seen any of the graphics for it, so I don't know exactly what it's like, but it's a bit Final Fantasy kind of like.
oh,
I think that's the impression I get anyways. But that's coming out soon. There's nothing else I'm currently working. Oh, I can say this. Arcade Paradise. Arcade Paradise is coming out very soon, but I don't know exactly when. I'm going to a launch party in a couple weeks' time.
oh, nice.
So yeah, I think it's coming out mid-August. There's certainly it's a gift or a wish list option at the moment, so you can go on Steam and various other places and wish list it. Arcade Paradise. I play Gerald, the dad of the character that you play. That's right. And you'll never guess where Gerald is. Dad's the wealthy dad, and dad is off in the Riviera.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
So he gives his son or daughter a laundromat to run and manage.
Oh, cool.
And your job is to go against daddy's wishes and turn it into an arcade. But there's a whole journey to happen there.
So Geralt in the Riviera, I love that.
I was gonna make a joke about what you were doing, Gerald, in the Riviera, but I won't say it because we'll definitely have to cut it. So
he's hanging out on his yacht.
Of course,
Roach.
Roach.
That it? What a name for a yacht. Okay, awesome. We'll definitely be sure to make sure the verified socials, and we'll check for some information about that. Lucy, where can we find you?
I am Lucy J. Robin on every social, I think. Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube, I think.
Perfect. And link to the Discord is Lucy's Discord with the channel 4 on the path. You can find me on Twitter at the Fox Bride 4. You can find me on Twitch and a recent Instagram that I created specifically for that at the Fox Bride. So no 4 on Twitch and Instagram, just the Fox Bride. And yes, again, massive thank you, Doug, for joining us. Very, very, very appreciative.
It's been so fun. Thank you very much, Doug. It's been great.
Oh, thank you for having me on. I'm glad we're coming to an end though, because I got to pee.
I've had to pee for about an hour and 20 minutes now. It's just recessed, and that's too much information. On that lovely note, we will see y'all next time.